Good day. This is Teresa Fredericks from Growing Businesses Using Projects, bringing you yet another video on the implementation of the Procurement Act of Trinidad and Tobago. We are looking at unsettled issues. This is video 9. It's on local industry development, which is one of the objects of the Procurement Act, and this is part 2. And in part 2, I'm seeing a role of local government reform in the implementation of the Procurement Act. Our agenda, we are going to be looking at the expectations of the benefits of the procurement reform. What did we expect? The expectations of the new procurement framework given the Procurement Act with respect to administration, that is, greater efficiency of implementation of government policies within the context of best practice. We're going to be looking at the case for the involvement of local government in the monitoring assistance to persons who use public money. Those are the small persons and small businesses. We are going to be discussing what matters and what needs to be done. So what did the reform initiative hope to achieve? Reform was needed to achieve the quality of governance envisaged by Vision 2020. To strengthen and promote confidence in public institutions, to guarantee substantial market share to local business in order to develop and promote domestic industry, to take advantage of developments in information and communication technologies, to ensure that domestic procurement practices are in conformity with international best practice, and to meet the requirements of the Caribbean single market and economy. So let us look at the proposed framework. What was that? Greater accountability and transparency of public money on property and services. This is one of the things the framework is seeking to bring in place. Greater efficiency of implementation of government policies within the context of best procurement practice. Public confidence in the manner by which government conducts its business, particularly in the acquisition of property and services. Ethical conduct of all parties in the procurement process, thereby engendering mutual trust and respect. The responsibility of Parliament in the procurement process. All of this was part of the framework that we're looking at. Equal opportunity for bidders and greater confidence in decision making. And the last one is the inclusion of other financial arrangements such as bill, own, operate, transfer, BOOT, bill, own, lease, transfer, BOLT, design, finance, construct under the legal and regulatory framework. What we had before was the Central Tenders Board that just looked at tendering, so that all these new financial arrangements where a lot of money was being spent on large projects, there was no oversight of these. And what the reform wanted was that all the procurements, wherever it was done in Trinidad and Tobago, would come under one agency who is going to be looking at all aspects of procurement. So one of the main things we were trying to do is to achieve efficiency and to stem the flow of dollars that were leaking out of the country because of corruption. So there's a plea for greater efficiency of implementation of government policies within the context of best procurement practices. And I'm saying that in an environment where we have so much to achieve in this Procurement Act, that a quick win would be if we monitor the procurement of goods, works and services and the disposal of public property by public bodies to ensure compliance with this act. This is one of the OPR's duties, and I'm saying of all the duties, if they can get these big procurements properly monitored and implemented, we would have done a lot in terms of a quick win. So I'm saying government agencies and the Office of Procurement Regulation has to be in a position to monitor and report on high-value, high-risk procurements across ministries, and even those being implemented by civil society through all phases of the procurement and disposal cycle. This is what I see as crucial, because we have too many projects all over the country and we don't know what is happening with them. This requires that if we have to get just this quick win in terms of bringing all the big procurements to a point where you can get answers to questions relative to the procurement practices, relative to how money is being spent in implementation, the state of implementation, whether there's any fraud or anything, so that we could cap or reduce fraud. This is what I call a quick win. And if we have to do that, all ministries, agencies have to establish a system of internal control with the necessary policies, procedures, etc. to ensure timely reporting. We need to know how our big projects are going. Where the system, etc. differ from that of the OPR, the required special handbooks have to be submitted to the OPR and approved. So that if your system is not what the OPR is saying you should have, you're supposed to do a special handbook and send that to the OPR for approval, and that will show what you're doing, and the OPR will be able to say whether, if you do that, you can become compliant with the objects of the Act and their requirements. Staff has to be suitably trained, job descriptions agreed to, code of conduct has to be agreed to, and operationalization of procurement units, departments has to take place. So, if we have to have this one quick win, what else do we have to do? We have to put a system of record keeping in place that can be used to deal with challenges, reporting, requests for information, safety of information from theft or fire, etc. A lot of investigations are stopped because the file is no longer available. So we have to ensure that it's not only the hard copy, but the digital copy is properly safeguarded, and that file deals with all aspects of procurement, from needs assessment right through to the closure of contracts and of the procurement. There has to be systems in place to track and respond to non-compliance with the objects of the Act and the OPR requirements. And that is not just of agency, non-government, public body non-compliance, but it's also of supplier non-compliance. What are the suppliers doing? Are they operating in keeping with the objects of the Act? You have to have continuous due diligence. Are they in the same position as they were when you gave them the contract? Is there something that you should be reporting to the OPR with respect to their performance? Then you have to performance monitoring systems are in place for these procurements, both at the ministry, agencies, and at the OPR. And what we are looking for is a really responsive legislative framework that takes into account international standards, but is also sensitive to local specificities and legal traditions, and is tailored to the challenge of the specific country. So it's not just that we're bringing in these international standards, but we're tailoring it to what are the challenges we have here, what adjustments we had to make. We realized that we had to go back to Parliament to get a 2023 amendment because our small business sector would have been negatively impacted. When we look at the duties of the OPR, there is a lot of bodies that have to report it. And let's look at some of the duties, and these are just some of the people. You have oversight of the whole procurement, retention and disposal cycle. So they have to ensure that there's compliance with the full cycle. They have a requirement with respect to audits, dealing with challenges, and there could be many challenges, because if the challenges to award of contracts and they're not sorted by the public body, it has to be referred to the OPR. Approval of special handbooks of public bodies. Now, if you have a system that differs from that of which they have recommended, you have to send a special handbook to the OPR for them to look at and give approval. And you know how many people can have differences in terms of their systems. Reviewing and compiling reports, reporting to Parliament and answering government questions. But it does not end there. Now, as we build a case for involvement of local government in the monitoring or assistance to small business persons who use public money, we are examining again the OPR and its many duties. and responsibilities with respect to different groups. And with respect to all these named persons, the OPR has additional duties: doing investigations of complaints, oversight of large projects funded by different agencies all over the country, depository management, administrative responsibilities with respect to those who have to report to the OPR, as well as the suppliers. Don't forget they have a responsibility to the suppliers, contractors, ensuring ethical behaviors of suppliers and officers of the public bodies, ensuring the integrity, efficiency, effectiveness of the procurement system, and that value for money and local industry development and the other objects of the Act are achieved. So I'm saying the OPR has a lot to do, and with respect to these small companies and small people or persons who use public funds, they also have a lot to do to be compliant, and there needs to be somebody that is going to work with them to ensure that they are compliant and in a position to operate in keeping with the objects of the Act. So what matters? What are we trying to do as a country? And I'm saying catch the big fish that is stealing millions through graft, corruption, award of contracts to persons or organizations lacking the competence to undertake them. We have to focus on procurements that matter, read dollar, and impact. But at the same time, we have to help persons, organizations who may not be doing millions of dollars of procurement, but who need to comply with the Procurement Act and the requirements of the OPR. I need you to tell me whether I am right in my analysis. Write in the comments if you are one of these persons. Either you run a CBO, or NGO, or FBO, or you are a person who spend public money and you are having problems implementing meeting the requirements of the Public Procurement Act and of the OPR, and you probably need guidance. This is what this video is all about. Many non-government businesses and other organizations and persons who spend public money have to now put in place systems, policies, procedures to ensure compliance with the Act. Many have to prepare their own special handbooks, which reflect where they differ from that developed by the OPR, and to prove that their systems, etc., when implemented, will ensure their compliance with the Act. Many have to do needs assessments and build procurement capacity, develop training programs, and attend to certification matters. Many have to develop new procurement documents and train staff in their use, as well as develop risk plans to mitigate risks to their operation. Now, it is said that the named procurement officer in the respective ministry will help the NGOs with respect to helping them to become compliant. But I am saying there is so much work that they have to do that I am saying that there is a role for local government in terms of helping these NGOs that are at the local level to come up with systems and procedures and policies that will help them to be compliant. Many of the local government municipalities, they are change agents now, so that they know what to do. And they have to do it for their municipalities. And I'm saying that they could work with the OPR to help these small business persons, because I do not really see that the OPR could spend a lot of time helping these persons become compliant. And I'm not seeing that the ministries, some ministries will have several NGOs reporting to it, and I cannot see an officer from the ministry taking up that role. I would like to get your views on it. Do you see a role for local government in helping the civil societies and individuals who spend public money to become compliant, or to put systems in place to become compliant with the objects of the Act, so that when these systems, procedures, and policies are implemented, they will be compliant with the objects of the Act? If you agree, let me know in the comments below. If you like my content, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. I think this is the last in the series that I'm doing for a little while. Bye.